Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 568. Releasing October 30 on Shudder is Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor, a found footage horror mystery that focuses on a group of internet sleuths who investigate the grisly, unsolved murders of an affluent family at an abandoned manor, only to find a different hell awaits them. The fourth film in the Hell House franchise, Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor, is one of the best and terrifying examples of found footage horror filmmaking in recent years, with its engrossing story and its dread-filled scares making it a must-watch this Halloween. And joining me now is the director of Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor, and indeed the architect of the Hell House franchise, Mr. Stephen Cognetti. Stephen, thank you so very much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
It's really interesting. So you return back to the Hell House franchise. This time, though, we're out of the Aberdeen Hotel. We're in the Carmichael Manor. Did you always know that if you were going to make a return to this franchise, that a change of scenery was going to be on the cards?
Yeah, I did, and I thought that was necessary. I thought that was the only way to do it. And I think we had the storyline, everything that happened at the Aberdeen Hotel was worn out and done, and then that's why I burned it down at the end of the third one, because it's like that is finality right there, and that's complete. And if I want to do anything more in the Hell House, it would just have to be something in the world, but not anything back to the hotel again. So yeah, I knew if we were going to go back to the story, go back to the world, it had to be something completely original in a whole new location. And in that, I think having a new location just helped creatively write the story, write the scares, and having different locations than just writing scares over and over in the same Aberdeen hotel was a very tricky task to do, hard task to do, and in 2 and 3. So 4 just was just fun to do because there's a whole new area.
Is it true that prior to working on this movie that you wrote like a draft of like a 1980s set kind of prequel based on the
Yeah,
Carmichael family, and that you pretty much looked at it, wasn't right for some reason, and then you just used like little elements of that into what we see people are going to see into
exactly.
the
Yeah.
film?
I wrote 120 pages of script about what happened in the hotel in the 80s, a little backstory on the hotel creation, what the cult was doing there, who was affecting how it was affecting the town surrounding it, and had some stories about the people that work there. One of them being one of the members of the Carmichael family, Patrick Carmichael, and so we couldn't do that for 2 reasons. One, budget, just to make a whole 80s period piece wasn't gonna work for the size of productions that we have. And then also the Aberdeen Hotel as it exists right now in real life is just so different from what it was when we filmed the original Hell House, that if we ever wanted to film something that's prequel in the hotel, they would just require so much like rebuild of like different. They've changed the room so many different ways now that it's like almost unrecognizable. So I took that storyline and just put it in bits and pieces in a modern day, present day setting, but we only kind of give glimpses of what might have happened in that story I wrote through Catherine Carmichael's home videos. So you get like just like little Easter eggs, and I think just like the original. With the original, like you see, a lot of people had said there's like a lot of holes in the story, a lot of things that are unexplained in the original, and I said, but that's true because I'm only giving you little glimpses, little teasers of like backstory that you don't really know about. But maybe one day we'll connect and make sense. And that's what I hope to do. Maybe someday I'll get to it and like connect why these little things, what was going on in Patrick's, Carmichael, Catherine, and all that storyline. I just want to give little teasers of that backstory without showing too much of it.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Fandango. Get the latest showtimes, guaranteed tickets, browse Rotten Tomatoes scores, and watch trailers with Fandango, the #1 movie ticketing app. I like when there's like little kind of gaps in there, because I like the fact that it kind of keeps you guessing and wants you wanting more. If you give away too much, I think when it comes to kind of like a world building, mythology kind of like storytelling, that kind of thirst for more, the knowledge for more, the seeking for it, really goes away. And in your case, the future films would just be moot, wouldn't they?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and it's fun to do. It's just fun to tease future plot lines and just give a little bit of a few breadcrumbs of what they might be and what might have happened.
The script that we see now, that's come to life in the movie that's come out October 30, is it true that you took like a year or so to kind of like refine the dialogue and the scares? And if that's the case, what is that on your end? Do you storyboard? Do you draw? Is it just writing only? How do you go about doing that process?
It's a fun process because it involves a lot of different things for inspiration. But yeah, it was a year-long process. It was probably March of 22 to March of uh, of 23 when we start filming in April 23. So, but it was probably about 6 or 8 months when I had the script well ready enough that I could start planning the production, like locations and acting. But once we found the new location, it was tweaking the script right up until we started shooting to fit the new location, the mansion we found. But my process is, yeah, I do a brilliant concept artist. His name is David Romero. I send him a lot of scenes of all my scripts, and he gives me like this beautiful concept art of what it could look like, and that helps a lot in not just for me, but also helps the production designers, cinematographers, makeup artists. We can all come together on like what a scare will look like. I do a lot of that. I listen to a lot of classical music while I'm writing. Get into different moods for different scenes. But usually I just write a first draft of a script, and I know that the first draft is never really a good draft. But I always just keep on writing it. I print it out, and then I go through it with red pens, blue pens, and just make notes. Just seeing the script from a bird's eye view, I think is so helpful, and then create the layers underneath that. Once you have that blueprint, create so many fun way, you know how it's going to end, you kind of know your middle, your beginning, and then you can just create all those layers, like different you could put in Easter eggs, make connections and payoffs, setups and ways to set up scenes and pay them off later once you have that foundation of the first draft. And it's just months and months of just rewriting, tweaking everything, and then getting to a place where you're happy to say like, okay, now I can start casting on this. I can start looking for locations and getting all the pieces set. Even though if I'm not, I know every word's not exactly written in stone yet. I have a good enough draft of a script that I can start planning the production on that draft.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you love. You talk about payoffs just then. I think that this Hell House movie has some of the best examples of an exercise in restraint in a lot of the scares that you have in the movie. You really know how to pace. You really know how to take its time. So when the scares do hit, they do so at like a high impact. There are numerous times where they make this old horror hound jump out of my seat. You know, I mean that in most sincere and thankful ways imaginable. Where do you, when it comes to the pacing of a scene, like for example, don't want to give away too much, but there is a scene in the movie, or a couple of them, where you kind of just focus on the door frame and you just in there, it's a creaking of floorboards that kind of lifts up the tension and more and more. Where does that kind of reveal itself to you creatively? Is that something that happens on the page, or is that something that happens in post with editing and sound effects and such? Where does the magic come together for a scare for one of your movies?
Yeah, I mean, all those things like the creaking of the floorboards, like a knock on the door, like to me, that's just really creepy. Like I love that stuff. Things that you hear, it feels real. That feels like something that can happen in real life. So it's different from like some monster chasing you, which is like it's scary, but that's like, but you know it's fiction. But like something that we can all relate to are just the little things that just creep us out in the middle of the night, hearing a footstep or, and I love that kind of stuff. And to me, like some of my favorite things to do in this movie were those little, like just like that knock at the door, because it's so subtle, but the unknown of what's on the other side of the door, I think, is so terrifying. And hearing those footsteps as walk down the hallway, it's great. I mean, obviously the sounds are built in post production though, but but the whole thing is planned out beforehand. And I got some inspiration from that. I Have you ever heard of like I think it's called like one sentence horror stories?
I think so.
And
Yeah.
they're so much fun to read. And I remember one of them, like I read this years ago, and I thought it always gave me the chills. Was the last man in the world is alone in a room, and there's a knock at the door. and that's just like chilling. And so because there shouldn't be, if he's the last man in the world, it's like, kind of like a I Am Legend kind of scenario, but there's a knock at the door. Like, who could that be? Why could that be? All that stuff. So just something as subtle as that can be scary. And I love playing into something, trying to be as minimal as you can, but scary. I think is a fun challenge to do. Not overdo anything. At any moment, any of these clowns that we see in the film, like, they could be doing so much more than they are. But I think it's great that they're not. And that goes back to the original Hell House when they're walking down the stairs, when Paul sees the clown at the bottom of the stairs in the middle of the night and they just walk down to it. That clown could have done anything, and I would have gotten a cheap thrill out of that from the audience if the clown just like moved a little bit. But I think that would have ruined the rest of everything else, the momentum that you're trying to set up. So I just love less is more, I think, when it comes to all that stuff.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Gift Card Store. Australia's leading provider of gift cards, Gift Card Store offers a variety of prepaid MasterCard and Visa cards in physical or e-card format. You can even design your own card as the ultimate personalized gift. With Gift Card Store, you can gift the gift you know they will love. I think so too, and I think it's something that a lot of horror filmmakers need to learn from. I mean, we talked about The Exorcist like off screen before. That movie, the whole 1 hour of everything, even before any of the notorious kind of like gory stuff, is just an anticipated build up. So you're already invested in a lot of this stuff, and then the payoffs happen. I think that's something that you do really well with your film as well. I want to talk about the universe building that you've developed here with the Hell House franchise. This fourth film, I think, fleshes out the universe even more so. Not only did you change the scenery, but I think like the lore, the mythology of a lot of what the stuff that's happening is just seems so much more bigger, and because of that, so much more sinister. But it's also very intimate at the same time. How do you go about creating your universe? Did you still have ideas back when you made the first movie that you kind of held on to and wanted to bring here? Also, do you kind of like look at those kind of gaps that you had beforehand and maybe kind of change your mind on some ideas and maybe want to switch things around a bit as the years gone by? I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a mixture of both things happened. But as I write, I just keep on writing, even if I don't know where I'm going with it. So the way I approach writing is kind of like, and it's not the way a lot of screenwriters do it, but it's the way a lot of novelists do it. And if you ever heard Stephen King give an interview, he says when he starts a story, he doesn't know if his characters are going to make it to the end or not. And he finds out when he gets to the end, that's when he finds out himself who's going to live and die in his stories. And myself too, I don't like to do notorious. I don't like to make in-depth outlines and everything before I go into any script. I like to just start writing an original story and see where I can make connections and bring in plot where I can. But I do have to sometimes, because we're getting into different timelines, I did have to write out a lot of things about when everything took place for my own. I use my whiteboards a lot. I got a little thing. I got this. Hotel was founded this time. This happened. The suicide happened this day. All this. I got those dates because I have to have that out, and I have to know my own timeline when I'm writing though. But I don't like to be restricted in like intense notes and outlines. I like to just write a story, and then once I have the story written out, the next revisions, just trying to make all the connections and bring things in into that story as I can. So. But it's fun to do. I love being able to take concepts from like the original film that I actually probably didn't plan on being something bigger than it was, but then bringing it in and making it a bigger part of the story. Like for instance, the piano jingle from the original movie. That was something like when we did that on the original movie, that was just something that the actor Gore Abrams, who plays Paul, and I just discussed when he was doing that scene. We're having fun with that scene because it was going to be a fun scare. It's going to be a setup and a payoff later. We hear him play it, then we hear, after he disappears, we hear that jingle playing. But I thought it's just fun to just give that like a bigger meaning in life throughout the whole trilogy and then into this film as well. But it wasn't planned. It's just, you just find ways to just take little pieces of story and see if you can give them more depth. And that's not something that was like pre-planned. It's just in the process. It's fun to do while you're writing.
Please support Matt's movie reviews on Patreon. Get access to exclusive content, request movie reviews and top 10 lists, and help support my work. Please click on the Patreon link in the description below. The main characters in your movie are these kind of true crime sleuths, and it's been over the last several years that kind of thing has become very notorious on YouTube and other social media and such. And the interesting thing about the Hell House movies is that as the Hell House movies have progressed over the years, at the same time, new media in regards to these kind of true crime, kind of like online personalities have grown in stature over time as well. The character of Margot in your movie, who's brilliantly played by Bridget Rose Perota, she's a character where on one end, she has she seeks a notoriety. She wants to be popular, of course, and she wants to, go where the story is. But there's also the need to kind of seek out the truth as well. And a lot of times, what to say, curiosity killed the cat, and these things can happen, right? What do you think it is about these kind of like personalities online to like to delve into these kind of cold cases, and sometimes there's even footage of these kind of ghost hunter type shows where they go into these places and try to seek out these kind of spirits and such, which I'm not a fan of, because I anyone, going back to The Exorcist, once you play with the Ouija board, you're going to invite people into your life. I don't mess with the dark spirits. What's your take on that kind of stuff? Like in regards to YouTube sleuths and ghost hunters and people who want to go to these places and seek out these horrors in these stories, especially in context to how you kind of built the Margot character in your movie.
Yeah, personally, it's not for me, but I appreciate that other people do it. I love that kind of stuff, and not just paranormal stuff, but just like kind of true crime stuff. And I love reading. So recently, actually, when I was I think it was when I was casting or finishing up this the script for this one. There's a big murder trial going on here in America. The Murdoch murders. Do you guys? Right, yeah. If you guys heard of it, was there? Yeah, because it was a Netflix documentary. So in watching like docs on murders like that was like, and Netflix has a lot of documentaries about Cecil B. Hotel. Things like that were inspirations for the style that I wanted to do. This kind of like real documentary style, where we use a lot of like B-roll, almost like reenactment kind of footage, but not really reenactment. It's more like just like kind of like a stock footage of events. But I love the fact that the debates that people have, and there's so many armchair internet detectives that just think they know exactly how that this person murdered this because of X, Y, and Z. They know it. They can, and there's the online arguments that go back and forth about that. But then there's someone who goes a little further. Like, I'm not just going to sit in my chair and argue my point of why I think someone is guilty of X, Y, and Z. I'm going to go there. And I told Bridget, the character, I said, just imagine like Margot is someone who wouldn't just want to argue about the Murdoch murders. She would want to go to the sites of where the murders and like just be there, because for her it's surreal to be at the site of something like that. And for her, there's always a paranormal element to it, as well, not just the murders itself. But I find that world fascinating. People that do that are interesting and fun, and I love to kind of just bring a little bit of that world into Hell House.
The interesting thing as well I find about your movies, especially this one, is it speaks about the insidious nature of evil. It's always there. It's always constant. Can you envision in future Hell House movies, if there are going to be more Hell House movies, and I hope there will be, that there will be at some point a counterpoint in regards to that? A Van Helsing to the Dracula, for example. Can you envision stuff like that happen? Because to me, it's one thing where there's insidious nature of evil, but evil cannot exist without the darkness, cannot exist without the light on the other side. I'm just curious whether the light will ever be introduced in your Hell House movies.
It's so funny. My mother-in-law always says the same thing to me. She reads my script and she's like, just remember, there's the other end of this too. And I said, I know, but I think so. I kind of feel like there was a little bit of that in Hell House 3 and how we ended Hell House 3, that it kind of good ended up triumphing a little bit. at the end there. But my whole point was that even in triumph, there's still something left there. There's always something left over, and the world is flawed. It always will be, and so it's never going to go. No matter who you defeat or whatever triumphs, there's always eventually going to come around again. Evil will. I think that's just the way the world is. So future movies. I would just love to explore more themes in future movies and do more with this. I don't know what is next for me personally, if that is going to be another Hell House or something else. But I too would love to make another one within this new series of films, something within that world again. Yeah.
So for everyone out there listening, October 30 on Shudder, Hell House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor. I can say with all honesty that this movie scared the shit out of me, and such a good way as well. Goosebumps inducing all through it. And I watch horror movies all the time, again sent to me all the time, and this is one of those films that really kind of stuck with me after watching it. And I think it's a tribute to your filmmaking, Stephen, and the way that you'd be able to flesh out the universe, and also that the great performances of your cast and just so many things go on.
The cast is amazing. Thank you for giving them a shout out. I had such a fun time working with them. They were so invested in their characters, such great collaborators on this. Every one of them, from the Carmichaels to the main leads in the present day cast, amazing people, amazing workers, amazing actors.
So everyone out there, when it's Hallows Eve, invite your friends around, get the popcorn, put on a Hell House LLC Origins, a Carmichael Manor. You will not be disappointed. You'll have a great time. You'll have a frightening time. And Stephen Cognetti, thank you so very much for your time. And yeah, hopefully in the future we could talk again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.